Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 209. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 6th of the 4th, 2023. The 6th is a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day, this 6th day of the month. Asking big questions. Trini Hotep says over there on Instagram. I'm currently streaming live on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. The age of consent, Fitarari, is 18 years old, I believe. Trinidad and Tobago does have that Romeo and Juliet cutout where if both of them involved are under 18 but over 16 or something like that, it's still within the realm. And I think with the marriage laws, if you're over 16, I believe your parents in certain religious aspects could give you permission to marry. It was 12 or 14 or something like that, and I think they raised it, but I don't think the religious law raised it to 18. I still think that's 16, I think. But there wasn't any marriage there, and young man wasn't under 18, he was 21. But he is deceased anyway right now. We're talking about a murder that happened recently in Trinidad and Tobago in St. Augustine. And so the interesting thing about this crime is that I saw the police say that it may have been gang related. But one of the murderers who went to do the murdering was murdered. Well, that may not have been murder. Was killed himself. One of the killers was killed. One of the killers who went to kill was killed when he went to kill. And you see to me there the result of criminals both having weapons, where criminals can defend themselves from other criminals, but if that criminal came to you, you better not have a weapon. And the reason I regularly talk to the police and talk about police is because when I look at situations like this in Trinidad and Tobago, someone was, the video I posted today, I posted a video today that was a snippet from the live on Monday where I spoke to an officer in the live, and some humor was involved there. But you know, some people talk about that and they're saying it's a stretch when you're talking about how cruel and how evil a society could get, and the officers would just enact the evil upon the society, and they're talking that's a stretch. This is Trinidad and Tobago. You're doing such a far out there mind experiment. You know, it's a thought. Yeah, you could think that. You call that normalcy bias. The Germans in the Weimar Republic didn't expect that they would end up in Nazi Germany. Many of the Russians didn't expect that the Soviet Union would turn into what it turned into. The Koreans who were living free in Korea at one point in time didn't expect it would turn into North Korea. There are many examples of such things. So yeah, things can and do change. So that's the reason I regularly appeal to the police, because what I notice in a country like Trinidad and Tobago is that when you have the violence on this side, you have the criminal elements squeezing down on one side. Good night, Kim Oliver over there on TikTok. You have the criminal elements squeezing down from one side. And then it seems like the police are squeezing more on the regular law-abiding citizens than they are squeezing on the criminal elements. So the regular law-abiding citizens are being squeezed on one side by the police and squeezed on the other side by the criminals. You're putting people, and I regularly say this, people act on incentive. You're incentivizing people to act more criminal. If I just lean into best I go out there and purchase one of the guns that these officers are advertising on their WhatsApp statuses, big and bold. I go and purchase a gun for $2,000 from an errant police officer, buy some rounds of ammunition and keep it in my house. Yeah, I'm a criminal, but at least if somebody comes to me, I could defend myself. And chances are, if I'm inside of the criminal underworld, well, I mightn't go to jail. I might just have a bribe to pay if I get caught. That's what you influence to happen in the country. It's incentivizing people to lean more into criminality. I wouldn't doubt that more and more you may find some people on the edges of the entrepreneurial world, on the edges of the business world. And I've noticed recently there are many entrepreneurs coming out, many entrepreneurs coming up in the millennial generation. I think many of the millennials might be more entrepreneurial minded than other people. And when you have more of those people coming out there with their little small businesses, and many of these small businesses might have a little cash flow going on there, and because they do deliveries, etc., they're prime targets. I wouldn't doubt you'd see more and more regular people who would have once been regular, upstanding citizens looking to purchase their little something on the side. If you're living in a war zone, it makes sense that you are armed to live in that war zone. And okay, if you're telling me that, well, we have rules for this war zone, you shall not be armed when you're inside the war zone, and I'm looking inside the war zone and everyone has a gun, and you're telling me no, the rules are that no one is to have a gun inside of this war. No, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Any one of you ever played Scooch? I don't know the kind of age you're working with inside of the life here. Anybody ever played a good game of Scooch? And you ever joined a game of Scooch where the rules are too fluid? They're telling you that you can't run with the ball. You can't run with the ball. So when you catch the ball, you just have to scooch from your standing position. And then you recognize, but when them fellas catch the ball, they're running into you. Then they say, no scooching to the head, no aiming over the shoulder. You can't scooch at people's heads. And then boom shot, ball ricocheting off of your head. That's the game we're playing in Trinidad and Tobago. That feels like the game we're playing. We're playing a game of scooch, and the rules that we're being told are the rules that we're supposed to be following. They aren't following those rules. The rules that the criminals work by, they have a special set of rules, and we have to follow the rules that put us as victims. Really. Virtual Vibe says, look, the new trend home invasions before you thought you would stay home to stay safe. But bro, Virtual Vibe, that, you see the home invasion part of crime in Trinidad and Tobago? Sorry, that's the part that I regularly talk about as probably the most offensive part to me in all of this. Like, okay, personally, I am okay with victim blaming to a certain level. To be very honest with you, I'm okay with victim blaming to a certain level. So maybe there could be an argument that, okay, if you are in a certain place at a wrong time, you should not have been there, and that could be why you fell victim to a crime. There might be an argument. For argument's sake, there might be an argument there. But you cannot possibly tell me that the wrong place for me to be at any given time is my own home. A man's home is his castle. I mean, this is a saying that we know throughout the ages. I am supposed to feel safe in my home. How could it be in this God-blessed country that a bandit could look at my home, me as a grown man, thinking of myself as, you know, I'm a head of the home, you know, we're Caribbean people, we're macho and masculine out here. You see all this beard and mustache I'm growing, I want to feel like a real man. And I, as a real man inside of my home, a bandit watching that from the outside knows that man cannot stop me. I could walk in there with my gun, and I know for sure that boy cannot have anything to defend himself in that house. And also I know if I run into his house, the police aren't going to be here anytime soon. He'd be lucky if they have a vehicle. That's the part I find just offensive. It's offensive. I cannot see how it could be just law that someone could be the victim to criminals so easily inside of their own home. That does not add up to me. I find no any bandit looking at someone's home should at least be thinking, if I kick down their front door, they're going to greet me with a hole in my chest. Like at least that should be the limitation. Okay, the bandits might roam the streets, but the bandits understand the homes are a sacred place. Like, oh God, at least let that be it. But no, that's not it. That's not it. How regularly you hear about that and see that in Trinidad and Tobago? Bandits run into someone's home and take whatever they want. You can't do anything about it. Virtual Vibe says we're in a really bad place, and I honestly don't think we as a nation understand. Well, the reality is the humanity has always been in a bad place if you look at it like that. So, like, I try not to go to the extremes of pessimism, because if we're talking about in a bad place, like, I like to think about as compared to when. So yes, we are in a bad place. Yes, I don't disagree necessarily. But when were we ever in a better place, really and truly? I mean, we've always technically been in a bad place, trying to get the best out of the bad places that we are in, if you understand what I mean. So, like, I temper the pessimism when thinking about it. I try to think about it just more as reality. We're trying to battle reality here. And the reality is that most governments, most states around the world, they aren't very interested in allowing the citizens to freely own weapons. Most places aren't like that. Rari, what a name is that? Rari. Bandits also target homes with guns to add to their arsenal. Rari says, well, yes, as they did in the Trin City home recently in the news. They stole 3 guns from that home. That is true, but that is also a reality, a creation of our present reality. Here's what I mean. If just about every home in Trinidad and Tobago had weapons, bandits trying to steal a weapon to get an extra weapon doesn't really make sense. Like, you don't need an extra. Like, if guns are illegal, having 50 guns aren't going to make a difference. One is really and truly all you need. You could, unless you're playing John Wayne or something out there, you're only shooting one at a time. So stealing another person's gun while you already have one isn't going to make you any more deadly than you already are. The reason stealing the gun is of any consequence in Trinidad and Tobago is because there aren't that many to go around. So you steal one and you're able to extend your criminal enterprise a bit. But if the guns weren't the limiting factor, if every home had enough anyway, so stealing it's like stealing a cup of water from the pipe. Where you break into someone's home and you steal a cup of water from their faucet. I mean, you stole it. Yes, you stole it from them, but it's inconsequential to some extent. And don't get me wrong, I understand such things would create other complexities in the society, like you see in the US society, for example. But I think the problems that are created by having it the way it is right now are already worse than the complexities that will be created if you give people a little more freedom to be able to defend themselves. But anyway, folks, this is Thursday night. It's the Thursday Talks. That's what we do on a Thursday night in the Mindful Live. So if you have anything to say, if you have a comment, if you have an idea, if you have a topic to bring up, some guns are better than others. That's true. If you have a topic to bring up, feel free to ask that question, bring up the topic, or request to even jump in the live and talk. If you're over there on TikTok, you can join and talk. Like talk, use your voice and talk. Right, a good few people over the last week were asking about and talking about BRICS, the economic group BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and the moves that are being made there. And I think some of the moves being made with the US dollar and that whole BRICS bloc. Those moves might be the most important news around the world presently, really and truly. Paul Duncan Carr says, if the police, based on their report, knows who the gangs are, why aren't they putting an end to gangs? Well, you see, the problem, Paul Duncan, and I'm talking here even beside the police corruption and the reality that there may be some police that there may be some police that are in cahoots with the gangs. Like, even beside that, bear in mind the police, are supposed to work within a legal framework. So, knowing who the gangs are, knowing the name of the gangs, knowing who is reputed to be the gang leader isn't enough to legally prosecute someone. You have to have proof of it. You can't just know it. You have to be able to prove it. So, okay, John James Jeremy is the leader of the Triple X gang, and you know that because you've heard that, but can you prove it? How can you prove that this guy leads this gang? How can you prove that this gang did this thing that you believe they did? Yeah, you know, it's not just about knowing, it's about proving, and therein lies the problem. And even after the police may have gotten some evidence that may prove something, it has to go through our court system. And our court system is basically a collapsing, failing one, where many people are given bail quickly. And bail, like you could be angry about the people who get bail. You could be angry about the people who get bail. But I understand fully why bail is an important thing in a country like Trinidad and Tobago, because many of these cases are going to take 15 years to come to completion. And you can't have somebody being remanded in jail for 15 years and they might very well be innocent. That's not fair. That's not good justice. So the bail system has to come up to, counterbalance that a bit. So then you have these people, even if the police catch them and get some evidence on them, while the court case is being processed, they may get bail and be back out there. And the court cases may take 15, 16, 17 plus years. And just the fact that the court cases take so long make them harder to win, which means some of these men may not even in the end be thrown in prison at all. So it's not all on the police. Not all on the police. Fitarari says, Paul, one of the reasons is that witnesses are afraid to come forward. That is true. That is true. The witnesses being afraid to come forward, though, is as a result of the pervasive of corruption in Trinidad and Tobago. If we were a country where criminality and corruption was not the run of the day, then the witnesses would feel pressure to not come forward. But when you know that we had a chief prosecutor, Dana Sitahal, that was murdered in our capital city, and up till now we're not sure exactly what went on there. Those things kind of slow down the speed on some people trying to get other things done. Kevin says, if 60% of reserves globally are in US dollars, if the BRICS start their own currency, wouldn't nations have an interest in continuing to trade in US dollars? The problem with that, Kevin, is people want to get rid of US dollars because for two main reasons, I think, in the modern time. One is one that has always been there. Well, both of them are reasons that have always been there, but the reasons that are accelerating due to this Russia-Ukraine bacchanal. One being the fact that the US prints their dollars. So because the US just prints money willy-nilly, they inflate their currency. And that inflation is borne by everyone who has US dollars the world over. So when the US prints money to bail out Silicon Valley Bank last 2 weeks there, when they bailed out another one of their banks who was doing madness and wasted money, and now they have to print a couple billions to bail out some other banks. What that does is it decreases the value of everyone who holds US dollars the world over. The original deal with the US dollar being the world reserve currency was the US dollar was pinned to gold. So countries around the world were like, okay, fine, I will use the US dollar as my reserve as a proxy for gold because it was pinned to gold. And then when they removed it from gold and just had it as fiat, I say so is what it's worth. Now you're on a little thin ice. But still, it was backed by US gun power basically. That was the main thing, the US gun power. But now, when you're seeing that these bureaucrats over in the United States have no care for any kind of stability in terms of how they print this money, they're going to make my reserves worthless. That's one. The second reason, when Russia invaded Ukraine last year, one of the sanctions that the US did early on was they froze the reserves of the Russian people. Now, understand this. Those reserves, that's like the savings of Russia. Those reserves aren't Vladimir Putin's own. Those reserves aren't the reserves of the Russian oligarchs. Those are the reserves, that's the money of the Russian people. And the United States said, okay, we don't like what you did, so we're going to steal your money basically. You can't use your money. That would scare the world. And it should scare the world. Because one of the chief things you want of a reserve currency is neutrality. You want that reserve currency to be apolitical. You don't want it to be that if the PNM saves up some and the United States wants the UNC in power, they could dilly-dally and play around with the PNM's money and influence that and get the UNC to win. You don't want that. Then that currency would not be stable. That's not something that you want. And the US, they have always done that to some extent with their sanctions, but when you do that to a country like Russia, massive country like Russia, you're scaring the world. You would scare a lot of the other countries. Any country that may now want to do something that the US may disagree with now has to be very afraid about the reserves that they hold in US dollars. So what those countries started to do was get rid of those US dollars, because the stability that we wanted from it, we're not getting it anymore. And now, bear in mind, the reserve currency idea would have come about in a time different from modern times, where yes, Sylvan, you reach late, but don't worry, you could always head in over on the YouTube channel and take in all of the lives that you missed. But yeah, Nathan Spring over there on YouTube, be sure to head over there and subscribe. Many countries wouldn't want that. They would want to change out of it. But the reserve currency came about in a different time. A time where information took a lot longer to travel the world. So, TT dollars, to allow somebody in Australia to know what a TT dollar is and to know this is real. Back in 1940s, 1930s, 1950s, even 60s even, that's a difficult thing. But present time, yes, Gage, but present time, that's not that difficult to do. Internet makes a lot of those things a lot easier. You could probably download a program on a cell phone that could verify authenticity of nearly any currency from nearly anywhere in the world. So countries are recognizing we don't necessarily need that common reserve currency the same way we once did. And then this common reserve currency is coming with a lot of strings attached. Now, the people that China are targeting heavily are people who already are leaning in that side. So African nations, remember, African nations are already worried about the influence that the United States is attempting to have on them. I mean, people are not foolish. People in Trinidad, people all over the world, they're very much aware that the US dollars that flow into their country almost always comes with some strings attached. You come hooked on to that liberal ideology. You know that is what comes flowing with the US dollars. And China, since their what's the road Belt and Road Initiative, where they started going into Africa, their promise was a bit different. Their promise was, we're allowing you to do what you want, basically. We're not here to influence your culture, to influence your belief, to influence how you want to run your country. We're just here giving you money. We're here as a financial institution, basically. And many of the African countries, that's much more tempting. I was looking at the South African president. BRICS is planning a summit in South Africa. Now, I don't know how many of you may have heard. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, issued a warrant for Mr. Vladimir Putin. The South African president let them know. When Putin is here, y'all cannot touch him. I wonder if I could find that video. I wonder if I could dig that up. I wonder if I could dig that up here. The South African president. He allowed them to know when he is coming here, we're going to protect him. And now that makes for some, yes, Malema. It makes, he's not the president, is he? He is just the head of the, what's that big African party? Malema. Is that how you spell his name? I feel like there's a U somewhere there. But yeah, and that is going to make some differences in the world. That is going to make some differences in the world. You're going to have more people now who would be willing to stand up to the United States. So countries like Uganda who recently passed a law that is starkly against LGBTQ, all identities of such. You know the United States is not going to be happy with that. But they might be like, okay, well, I dare you to sanction me. I dare you, United States, to sanction me. And all I will do is start to do all of my trade in yuan. I'm going to go over to China. And I don't have to worry about sanctions over on that side. And there has been discussion right now. There has been discussion right now with BRICS about actually creating their own common currency. Now, some people suppose that what this would do is create a multipolar world, meaning that there isn't only one power in the world, there would be multiple powers around the world. So you would have that concentration of power with China being there with BRICS, and then you would have that concentration of power with the European Union and NATO and the United States, etc. And you'd have those different poles pulling. Now, I am not actually sure about that, because power doesn't like to share. Power doesn't like to share. There's I forgot what they called it. There's a theory that states and shows that nearly any time one global power attempts to usurp another one, to cross over to another one, there's inevitably war. There's inevitably war. So I am not sure if these moves could be made by BRICS and the United States would see themselves sinking lower and lower and lower and do nothing about it. I am unsure about that, because the thing is, if countries start to kick off the US dollar, it's not just that the United States would lose friends around the world. That's going to have a massive impact on the US economy. If all of the US dollars that they have pushed out around the world start to find their way back to the US mainland, they're going to have a lot of useless money chasing much fewer actual real world resources. You're going to end up with the situation that causes hyperinflation. The last industrial power that faced hyperinflation was the Weimar Republic. I don't know how many of you know what the Weimar Republic was. They don't exist anymore. But when they faced that hyperinflation, they got a guy to come through and lead them into the future. And it wasn't a good future. They have a hammer in the form of the military. They'll start looking for nails. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. But the thing is, the US military is good at destroying an area. They're good at doing that. But the US military hasn't really succeeded in any of the goals they have had since, what, World War II? When last has the US military actually succeeded in a goal? They went into Iraq, okay, they killed Saddam Hussein, but Iraq still has people fighting against the US there. They didn't eradicate the opposition inside of Iraq. They're still there trying to maintain the peace. They went into Afghanistan. Did they win that war really and truly? They spent 20 years there. Within a week of leaving, Afghanistan reverted to the same way they were before. So, even though they do have that military power, is that military power able to even make the changes that they may want to make? Can you use your military power to make people take your dollars? Can that happen? You see, what the US has done to make people take their dollars for a very long time now is keep giving it all over. What was the actual purpose of those invasions? Well, I suppose that will be a complex answer. It's according to who you ask. The purpose of the Afghanistan invasion on the face was because the US was attacked on 9/11 and they went to get the Taliban and to get Osama bin Laden, and that was the purpose of the Afghanistan invasion. If you ask certain people, the purpose of the Iraq invasion was there were weapons of mass destruction inside of Iraq, and they couldn't allow Mr. Saddam Hussein to do that. So, well, if you're asking, not on the face, it's geopolitics. So Afghanistan, some of them I would say is money laundering, because the US has a problem with massive military industrial complex companies that they need the foreign wars, because that's the only way they could sell their products is by having wars. So they have that as a problem. For one, they have companies that need wars in order to make money, and those companies have strong influence in their government. So some of it may just be money laundering for their military companies. That's one. But also part of it is geopolitics, wanting to get oil here, wanting to get oil there, wanting to get a favorable leadership in one spot. So for example, in Syria, the war in Syria, where they went in and said that Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, was gassing his own people and they wanted to get rid of him. So they invaded Syria. Well, they didn't invade Syria totally, but they were attempting to help the rebels in Syria to depose their leader, etc. Okay, they're saying that was the reason, but at the same time, just as a matter of coincidence, there was a pipeline that they wanted to run from Qatar through Syria up to Turkey into Europe to supply Europe with natural gas. And Syria said no, because Syria is allies with Russia. And Russia supplies Europe with natural gas. Well, still supplies Europe with a large, then the majority of their natural gas. And it's not in Russian interest to have a competitor build a pipeline running up and bringing natural gas from Qatar. So they refuse that. And then suddenly the Syrian president became a guy that was a terrorist and he gassed his own people. And the US had to bring freedom into Syria. Strange the way how that happens. So yeah, if you're asking for the under the surface reasons for all of those wars, I am sure I don't even know 1% of the under the surface reasons. Kevon says, saw one explanation that the Afghan war was a sandbox to allow the US military to remain battle ready and allow them to test equipment. Maybe. Dark Grim Reaper says, US have hundreds of bases all over the world, but they don't want any Russian base in the Western world. That's correct. That is correct. But one of the main ways that the US gets their money all over the world isn't actually through the fighting. That's not the main way they do it. The main way they do it is give. The US gives money constantly. They give money to, they give millions of dollars to gender studies in Pakistan. Come on. Anybody knows anything about Pakistan, you'd know that if you send US dollars, millions of dollars, to Pakistan for gender studies, they're not going into gender studies. But that's kind of irrelevant on the US side. What they want to do is make sure that the US dollars are being used as much as possible all over the world. That's their main aim. They want the US dollars in use all over the world. So they want you to keep US dollars. They want you to want US dollars as much as possible. And that's why they keep giving it all over the world. They keep donating it here, they keep giving it there, they keep bargaining with it. They keep wanting people to want US dollars. That Grim Reaper says, question, what happened if the US dollar to TT dollar reaches 1 to 3? I am not sure something like that could happen because TT dollar is pretty much linked to the US dollar. And because we are so strongly linked to the US economy, as in the liberal economic order, we're always at the mercy of the decisions of the US financial system. Unless we decide that we want to go along with BRICS, which I think is pretty much impossible for a country like Trinidad and Tobago in our position. So we're tied to the US dollar. We're going down with that ship very likely if they start to go down. That's just the reality. If the United States starts to face hyperinflation because their dollars start to become more worthless the world over, very likely we will face the same. We'll face a lot of the same consequences too. That's just the reality of that. All right, yes, it's a Thursday. Any further comments or questions? We're talking on a Thursday. It's Thursday Talks, yo. It's Thursday Talks. What are we thinking about? That Grim Reaper says, I say maybe next 5 to 10 years the US dollar will drop. I think if it does drop, it's going to be in a much shorter time than 5 to 10 years. Why would it be impossible to move from the US dollar, Adato Studios says or asks? It wouldn't be impossible. It wouldn't be impossible. If I said that, I'm wrong. But I think it would be nearly impossible because it would be just very difficult. Because our system is so strongly tied into the US system. Our reserves are in US dollars. If we start to sell off those reserves, well, all our trading partners, the majority of our trading partners are members of this liberal economic order linked to the United States. We are still linked in tight with the SWIFT payment system. So nearly every aspect of our financial system is linked. That decoupling isn't going to be easily done. It's not something that is easy to be done. So the BRICS would eventually destabilize most of the global economy. It might, but it's according. It might destabilize much of the Western economy, but the Western economy isn't necessarily the whole or even the majority of the global economy. If you're talking in terms of people, number of people, like you see, there's a reality where certain economies are more vulnerable. The United States attempted to knock down Russia with their sanctions when they froze all of the Russian US reserves. When they did that, the attempt there was to cause a run on the banks. They were attempting to make all of the Russian citizens get frightened, run to the banks and demand their money and cause the Russian banking system to basically collapse. But the problem with countries like Russia is Russia has resources. Russia makes money with resources. You see, you're much more secure when you have hard resources. So, for example, if this whole global economic order collapses, many of the poor African nations would not be that badly off because they actually have the resources. They don't need US dollars really and truly. They have the lithium. They could take the lithium and literally barter the lithium to get something else in exchange. They have the actual resources. Same with Russia. So when the US attempted to cut them off, you can't cut me off, bro. I have the oil and gas, and you need the oil and gas. There's no cutoff that could happen here. There's literally no cutoff. I have the resources. You have the paper, you have the printing machine, you have the control of the system, but at the end of the day, I have the resources. And I think that's what caused some of the triggering of the movement we were seeing right now with that US dollar and the BRICS bloc, because the US overplayed their hand there in Russia. And the Russians were like, well, We like the financial system. There's benefit to us from that. But if you're playing spoiled child, you take your financial system and go with it. Well, okay, we have the resources. We're going to do something else. We're going to trade with China in their dollars for the resources. Simple as. And then if enough people would do that, we have our own thing going on the side. And then look what this is what China is doing. You see, the Chinese don't work on the 5-year cycle or 4-year cycle as democratic countries mostly work on, because they don't change leaders like that. They could plan for 30 years ahead. So China went into Africa, China went into South America with their Belt and Road initiatives, etc. Many of those African countries are already over leveraged to China. They're already owing China. So if now, where they're already inside the jaws of China, they're already in China's mouth, basically. China comes to you and says, well, let's do most of our trade in Chinese currency. You're going to be like, well, fine, I owe you all the money anyhow, so fine by me. They went to Africa, they went to South America, they went, I believe, to Malaysia, they went to Indonesia, they went to India. They're taking the entire global south. They're doing a smart move here. They understood that the global north had hegemony for a long time and they abused it. Those people in the global north, in the US and in Europe, who had nonsense jobs, for the last 30 years, milking out extreme amounts of profit for doing barely anything. They're doing barely anything and milking out extreme amounts of profit because the entire world has to prop up their system. They fleeced the global south for the last couple centuries, and got wealthy off of it. So now if Russia comes with an opportunity to the global south and says, we could stick it to the United States and do it. China, comes with an opportunity and says we could stick it to the United States and make our own money. That's a tempting offer. And many of them are taking up that offer. And I am not sure what the United States can or would do about that. I don't think guns could solve it. Adato Studios says, what do you think our government is thinking, or what should they be planning about what is unfolding? I don't think they're planning anything, to be very honest. When a complaint I have regularly about our government, and it's a complaint I have about many of the Caribbean governments, many of the governments from former colonies, we are copy and paste governments, to me, when I look at a lot of what we do. How many pieces of law, pieces of legislation, how many ideas are novel in our parliamentary system? How many ideas do our politicians come up, laws, legislation, theories, even policies do they come up with that is unique to Trinidad and Tobago, that is specific to our culture, our history? Nearly pretty much none. Almost all of them are copy and paste from some European country, from Britain, from the United States, a law that they saw in the US. They saw the US enact seatbelt laws, so we enacted seatbelt laws. They saw the US have child seat laws, so we enact child seat laws. They saw inspection stickers over in Europe, so they wanted inspection stick. All of them are just kind of reactionary copy and paste. So that's actually what I think we would be waiting on. We would be waiting on the United States to signal what we should do next. That's what I think we'd be waiting on. Jaron says, I wonder which side would our government pick? The US, of course. Kevon says they are wait and see government. We just had to rock back and see who winning and side with them. No, that's not gonna work like that. Kevon says PM Rowley admitted that he stayed up late at night watching news to see what Australia was doing. Correct. About COVID, correct. That regularly I say that. With the COVID, we saw that. with the COVID, we saw that we just followed. We just followed what other governments did. We didn't use our own intelligence to try and figure out what we should do. We just followed. Wendell says, I think we should invest heavily in food / agriculture. That's the thing. What if you're asking me my advice on that? I would say, as much as possible, invest in resources. Make resources. Be effective at something. If you have a garden, 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres, whatever, you have a garden producing fruit and producing food. If today, tomorrow, the US banking system collapses, the next day, your garden is still going to have fruit in it. You could take that fruit, carry it somewhere, and exchange fruit for something else. Actual hard resources are what pulls you through those kind of difficult times. The problem with places like the United States is that probably the vast majority of their wealthy people are wealthy from service industry kind of related things. They're moving ones and zeros around, typing things up on a computer. So if a system collapses, they're only wealthy because there's a system that exists. If there isn't a system to prove that wealth that they have, they can't be independently wealthy outside of the system. Kevin says yes, but you'll also need guns. Yeah, that's it at the end of the day. The reality is those with the most guns usually win, you know. Those with the most guns, when it all comes down to it, those with the most guns usually win. Well, with the most guns and most willing to use it. So, if you have a whole big garden full of fruit and I have 50 men with guns, well, I have a whole big garden full of fruit. Who have the links for the Blicky? Jaron asks. Look for the officers. Regularly there are police officers advertising guns for sale. That's the strangest thing, you know. Regularly in Trinidad and Tobago, police officers advertise sale of weapons. Imagine that. Trade fruits for your life? No. Jaron, you can't trade fruits for your life. If I have a weapon and you have a garden, I don't want the fruits. I want the garden. No, I'm not coming for you to give me a bag of mango. No, we're living in a post-apocalyptic scenario here. I am coming for the entire garden. I am coming for the entire garden. Silver in Trinidad says that ticket hurt, boy. Yeah, it did, but it's not the ticket I've been speaking about. I've been speaking about those things for a long time now. I've been speaking about those things for a long time now, and the reason, Sylvan, is because I recognize that the officers in Trinidad and Tobago do have a large part to play, and I think if we could get our police service to be 20% more honest, we'll see a large reduction in crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Together we will move forward. We will move forward when we get better officers, or officers get better decision-making processes. That's when we move forward. And it's not hate. I like the officers. I am hoping that, like to go back into that discussion. Let's go back down that road. Like, the thing is, there's a reason in most societies when a coup happens, they go for the military or the protective services first. By watching this live, word up. I like that, Sylvan. I like that. They go for the military first and the protective services, etc. That was the problem with Jamaat back in 1990, you know? Like, there's nearly no coup that works if you don't have the military. You can't take over if you don't have the biggest group of men with guns in the country. If you have the military and police, you don't you don't need really a coup. If you have the military and police, you are the ruler. You could define the leader of a country as the person with the support of the military and the police. That's who leads a country. You want to know who leads a country? The person with the support of the military and the police. And that's why I am so pressing on the point that people in these sectors need to be morally circumspect, because you aren't there just following laws. You are there enforcing authority on the land. And it's a pipe dream, it's a fallacy many of us in the West have. It's a pipe dream. Be careful, bro, you never know who listens. Good, that's true, and that's why I try not to be disrespectful or anything like that. All of what I'm saying is recorded on YouTube. Someone could come and play it back and I'll stand by the words I say. Or if I was wrong, I'll apologize for things I say. I try to be sensible with the words. That's why I say you need to be morally circumspect. And it's a pipe dream many of us here in the West have. We've bought so strong into the idea of democracy and rights and constitution and the liberal and liberalism of democracy over the world. And that's like the United States is trying to spread that over the world. But that's not really how countries function. Countries don't actually work on laws. That's not really how they function. Countries function on the zeitgeist, on the present modern day culture. So in the United States, and I use US examples constantly because they report everything, so it's easy to know all of their business. The United States, there are states that are sanctuary states for illegal immigrants. So there are law enforcement officers inside of an entire state that recognize we are not going to enforce the law that says these people are in our country illegally. So it's not really California is a sanctuary state, Chicago is a sanctuary city. There are sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. So there are many sanctuary states and there are many sanctuary cities and very few sanctuary states. So I believe California is a sanctuary state. Well, go ahead. You could go to San Francisco and see if you'd like it there right now. I don't think you would, bro. Because running a territory the way they run a territory doesn't lead to good outcomes. But nonetheless, you see that there is that reality where people, where law enforcement agents in an area, they aren't working based on the law. That's never been how it's done. It's never been how it's done. When you get an order as a law enforcement agent, you don't go and consult the Constitution to see if your order is in line with the laws of the land or the Constitution. You're working on the order of your higher ups, the order of your seniors. What they tell you to do, generally speaking, you do. And in that case, when you think about it like that, you have to understand then you can't fall back on the excuse that I am obeying the law, because that's not what you are doing really and truly. If you check yourself, you aren't actually obeying the laws. You're following orders. And if you're following orders, now I'm not saying following orders is a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That may be positive. There may be good orders. There are good orders. But when you are following orders, you have to have your mind on about what the orders are that you follow. The people selected their representatives who make laws on behalf of the people. Sylvan, Trinidad, you keep repeating that same line, and we have gone over that process over and over again. We recognize that countries are not run by the laws that are written. So you could say that the people elected representatives to enact laws, but those laws are not how the country is run. As I keep saying, the question I would have for some officers that say things like that, I would ask, if your senior orders you to carry out an action that is against the law, what would you do? What would you do? And the reality is, in most cases, you would carry out the action. That's just the reality. So you know, the not do it, Sylvan Trinidad says. Okay, if your senior gives you an order to break the law, you would not do it. But here's how that's dishonest, Sylvan. Here's how that's dishonest. Not prosecuting someone for breaking the law, comply and then complain. Thank you for being honest, Tony the ambassador. Thank you for being honest. That's actually more along the lines of what may happen. Not prosecuting. If you see a crime being committed and you do not act on it as a police, you're breaking the law. Aren't you required as a police to act when you see a crime being committed? I remember Crimac told me about that. There's neglect of duty. So as a police, if you see a crime being committed, you are required by law to act on it. Okay. So if you're senior, if you see a traffic crime being committed and your senior says, let it go, would you go ahead and give that ticket still and disobey your senior? Sylvan Trinidad, like, be honest. Don't just argue for argument's sake. If we're having a conversation, we have to be honest if we want to get the best out of the conversation. We have to be honest. So the laws in Trinidad say everything that happens on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, everything that happens on Carnival Monday and Tuesday is against the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. Everything. The lewdness, the lyrics, the vulgarity on the streets, it's all against our Constitution. They're breaking the law. Where are the officers running to arrest the revelers on Carnival Monday and Tuesday? They are not there doing it because culturally it's not accepted. It's not about the law, it's about the culture. Some of the laws are suspended by Parliament for that period. I remember when you said that. But Sylvan Trinidad, right in a life here, I sat down and read the Carnival ordinances where they passed it in Parliament. They passed those ordinances, and the ordinances didn't suspend the lewdness and the rudeness and the raucousness and the vulgarity part. That was still there in the Carnival ordinance. Did you read the ordinance as an officer, Sylvan? Did you read which laws were suspended for Carnival? I would wager you didn't, because what you're saying now shows that you didn't read it. So then you were going on orders. Some higher up told you that actually some laws were suspended for this period. So you just said okay and you went along with it. You weren't working based on laws. You were working based on orders. Like, I'm willing to go down this road with you, but I really and truly, I'm sure everyone in the live could see by now that you're kind of replying for replying's sake, because it's kind of obvious this is how the police function. It is. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because the reality is it has to be that way. Because, okay, there are complex issues sometimes in policing. So a police officer on the scene may not be aware of all the facts surrounding the issue that they are attending. So what you have to do as an officer on the scene is you have to follow the orders of people who may be privy to more information than you. So sometimes the orders may not make sense to you on the ground. Sometimes the order could seem like it may contravene the law, but really and truly there's a bigger picture. And if you follow the order and at the end of it, you might recognize, okay, that's why they did it. So you are going to do a traffic stop and you hear the order over the dispatch or whatever, you get it over. Do not do that. Yes, the man is breaking the law, but allow him to do it for now, because they're trying to trace that vehicle to the final spot to make a bigger drug bust or whatever. I'm making up an example here. So I understand why policing works like that. I understand. Obviously, it has to work on an orders-based thing. Every single officer cannot have their constitutional pocketbook, and everything they do at every moment in the day, they pull out their book and flip to a page and make sure they're going according to the letter of the law. I understand that, and that's the reason you want humans as police officers. That's the reason you want humans in the system. So humans there can make a judgment call and make things and do things with their as a moral character in it. So, I am not knocking police for the structure of policing. What I am saying here is you have to be aware. Good night, positive radiation. You have to be aware. Sylvan, you're talking like a robot. Okay, yes, because there's a... Yeah, because there's complexity in policing. There are some reasons, some cases where you follow orders. Yes, but because you work on orders and not laws, you have to have your morality engaged. Because you cannot say that I'm working on the letter of the law that the people voted for and their representatives passed, because that is not what you're actually working on. Sorry, positive radiation, we were talking about many other things. It could seem like we're just talking about police again, but we just dove back into this topic. The orders must be lawful. Sylvan, so this is why I like when someone is actually here talking in return, because the comments come so slow. The comments come so slow. Sylvan, we know that not all the orders are to the letter of the law. We know that the officers would still follow them, but such is life. All right. Any other topics then, Empress Roni Cakes and positive radiation? Any other questions? Can I come in? Yeah, you could come in the box, bro. Jump in. Jump in. We have a 10% more battery. We have a little bit. Jump in, bro. Yeah, you should, Trini Hotep. Yeah, you should. Stop it, Rooney. I'm not seeing any request button. Why is that, positive radiation? Why is that? All right. I added you as a moderator there, positive. See if you could see it now. Is $250 too much to pay for hot cross buns? I don't know what's going on then. What is TikTok doing to me? If they aren't allowing the boxes, what's going on, TikTok? Let's see. Comment settings. I don't know. Send the request. I don't even know how to send that request because there's no option to send a request. Ah, there it is. There it is. I see you all now. The new president, little feeble.
The button now come up the yeah, as we on the issue of law enforcement for the longest while.
We weren't talking about that all night. Most of the night we were actually talking about BRICS, the other alternative economic system that's competing in the world now. But yes, on law enforcement for now.
Yeah, I think one of the largest problems we have to look at is our culture when it comes to policing and law enforcement. And I think that is what we just mess with. Because we oftentimes prong the officers, but the officers are a product of our system.
True.
Because the reality of our culture is we are no longer genuine. Let me put it like that. We will beg for a blind, we will want to openly lie to these law enforcement officers And when they read it and they pick it up, they're going to wood you. Because if I'm to become a law enforcement officer and I realize you blatantly lying or you're playing games for me, and I am within the and I know it's within the remit of the law to charge you, I would charge you for being unreasonable.
You're hearing me?
If you think just
I seen somebody say something about audio there. You're hearing, right? I am sounding distant. Oh, well, I noticed that happens when there are guests. If like I talk while he's talking, generally you'd hear him more than me. But that's all right. It's just we can't over talk each other. But you're 100% right with that positive radiation. It's a cultural issue, and on the culture of that, Sylvan could talk about that when they jump in there. I would say too, what I would like to see of our police culture is I would like to see a little more service oriented. Something that always stuck with me, and interaction always stuck with me. I remember a time I was going Mayaro and I was passing Manzanilla and I bounced, not Manzanilla, sorry, Sangre Grande, and I bounced up a roadblock in Grande. And the police ladies from that municipal police in Grande, listen, I actually enjoyed going through the roadblock. When they pulled me aside, they searched my vehicle, and I was happy after the search because the interaction they had, like the aura I got from them was, you know, a proper nurse. You ever interacted with a proper nurse, someone who understands nursing? It's not that they're babying you or mama guying you, anything silly like that, but they're treating you and you feel a kind of respect.
Mr. Springer, good night.
Good night, Sylvan.
And good night to all other members, positive everybody. I'm glad that you had a positive experience in a roadblock. But I just find on this particular topic, now, normally I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the way you protest, the way you think. I really like your thoughts. However, I find it being unfair is that and I'll go back to the point, probably you could say something that may convince me differently, but the people have the power to vote anybody they choose.
Correct.
Anybody they choose.
Not correct.
The people vote for representatives, and the representative either make laws or keep laws on behalf of the people. Alright? And then it goes to different arms of law enforcement to enforce. And it's only in that point that the people have a problem. How is that fair? I'm muting my mic, Alice.
Alright.
Mr. Sylvan, I think the word should be used in some of your statements, meaning or supposed to, because practicality and theory is two totally different things. Two, I believe in the formation of laws. Law enforcement should be a lot more involved and not just the lawyers. So if you're creating a law, I think we should have police officers being able to say, well, Minister, I believe this law is going to be flawed because this is what we face on a daily basis.
Ooh.
This is how we treat this. You're not on the ground doing what we're discussing here.
Very good point.
I think even our governance structure should change. Because they can make the most grandest law, but when you come to implement it, you realize, well, this is so impractical and irrational and all the ease we could find.
Here's the thing. To answer your question first, Sylvan, I understand why that feels unfair, and it would always feel unfair. But I would say the reason it feels unfair is because of the position you are in. So it's like as if you're a doctor. If you're a doctor and a patient comes into the hospital and the patient didn't eat good, you were their doctor for the last 10 years. You advised them on a proper diet. They had a lifestyle disease. You advised them to change their diet and you gave them all the proper advice. And then they still did something wrong. And then you rushed into an emergency surgery, and in the emergency surgery they died. The family is very likely still going to want to have some fingers pointing at you or be close to wanting that, because the reality is you are the part that reaches them. Yes, Sylvan, in that case, the problem is the patient. I'm using an analogy to explain why the police get that kind of pounding. So, in the reality of the situation we are in here, the arm of the system that touches us is the police. So, if the system is doing something abusive to us, you feel like the police are those that are doing the abuse. And the police being actual living human beings, not robots, you get the idea that, okay, you didn't have to follow a rule here. If this rule is abusive to the people, you don't actually have to follow it. And here's the reason I say, wait, I'm going to the next part of your point. I'm going to the next part, where you say the people have the opportunity to choose the people who make the rules. I think that's a fallacy. That's not actually how the system runs. I never got the opportunity to tell somebody what I wanted the law to be in terms of inspection stickers in my land. That's not actually how our political system works. There's an illusion of choice. We cannot actually make changes happen at that level as easily as you say. Very often, we think the political system needs top-down change, while usually if you get change happening in a political system, it's very often more bottom-up. That's why I appeal even to the officers. As Positive Radiation says, I'm linking all and I'll give you all the talk, don't worry. As Positive Radiation rightfully said, and I saw there was a law sometime last year where they were involving some officers in discussing the law, and that is so true. That is so true, because as an officer, you would know the reality of certain things on the road. So I remember when they started the speeding tickets, an officer told me they stopped doing it at night because they recognized that bringing a speeding person to a halt at night creates some road traffic accidents. So they were the people that recognized that. And in building, that's something I recognize. There are architectures. There are people who build architectural designs and put it out there for the builders to build. And the builders who know about the reality of building know that some of these things are just unrealistic when the rubber meets the road. And I'd say the police are in that position too. So where Tony the Ambassador said comply and complain, I could take that so much more. I would like to see at least the officers from the ground level carrying information back up the ranks to let them know that, hey, we're not for this kind of oppression on the people. Do not try to get us to be your tax collectors. But no, we'd see the police protest and shut down the country when they want to get a raise. But they will not do any kind of protest and complaint when they are forced to oppress the people. And then in that case, you're telling me that I should point the finger at only the representatives, but I'm saying yes, I point the finger at them, but you're carrying out their wicked orders too. How are you absolved?
I understand what you're saying, Nathan, but I'm just a bit cautious in having the police decide which law they're going to enforce. To me, that is something dangerous.
Very true.
In that police officers come from different communities, different backgrounds, they have different values. And what may be okay for one, I find this should not be enforced. Another may have a different view. And if you have police in South, police in North, police enforcing different type of laws, to me, that's kind of dangerous. Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Spring. And I believe what you're saying is that what you want to say is that police officers should be more vocal in the implementation of laws and the legislative process. But I think, if I remember my social study class correctly, is a reason why the different arms of the state are separated. Meaning that if the police make all the laws, but so if there is a reason why the different arms of the states are separated. But I'm just saying that, hey, that is your oath to enforce your laws. Police should be enforcing the laws, and that members of the public should not be asking the police not to enforce the law. To me, that's a slippery slope, because we have a constitution. It may not be perfect, but there are many ways, numerous ways in the constitution that we can make change. All right? But what you are saying, it is easier to blame the police, and it is easier police don't do this than to do the difficult thing, which is to unite as a nation for the country to move forward. I mean, it would not be easy, but hey, if we believe that some of the laws are not for the people of the power, and this is my thing of mental slavery. Imagine the people who had the power to change it, telling themselves, hey, it can't change. My one vote is making a difference. No, and I disagree, and that we need to change this in our minds, that hey, we have the power. And well, for obvious reasons, I can't delve into party politics, so I'm staying far away from that. I am just saying that in the system has somehow convinced us that the people who have the power, that they're powerless. And to me, that is more frightening than them born them with the AR-15. Because we could deal with them born them quick.
I think people are convinced that they are powerless, not because the system convinced them, as in tricked them to do it, but they have seen it over time. So you're saying that what we need to do is get the change done at the top. Okay. But if people are saying at the moment, we cannot get that, and we are seeing as a culture, this here could clearly be established as not making sense. You're saying that as an officer, it would still make sense for you to continue implementing the parts that are unfair in the society.
Yeah, but Nathan,
yeah, positive.
You look at the legality of it. Because I get your point in saying yes, it's immoral, but when he doesn't take action, he's seen that he's done his truth, and you see the whole top-down approach coming on again.
But here's the problem I have with that, positive. Positive, the problem I have with that, I'm just saying the problem so you can address.
Family to feed, he now has bills to pay. So
yes,
it's not the easiest of decision to make one.
Great. Yes, wait. I want you to address this in the train. The problem I have with that is, this is what I was going to say, as Ronnie said. There's already a discretionary side. Police do not enforce all the laws already. That's already the reality. Go ahead, finish.
But you can't challenge one discussion, because it's your word against the officer's word, and most likely they're going to take his word because he's the trained law enforcement official. The state technically covers him, because there was a period of time where the previous commissioner was saying, if the officer made the error and it's proven that the officers made the error, the officer should pay, or he should have a share in it, and the state shouldn't cover all the debt. And when we saw the police service the division of President of River State, he find that is wrong. But if an officer knows I am going to be financially affected by whatever decision I make, it's going to happen. And then you're going to see a different level of discretion being applied. And then imagine now too, you have to go to a judge and justify why you use discretion here and why you didn't. So you know, as officer, have to be legally prepared to make a decision that in the event this goes to court, I now have to justify why I use discretion or not, even if the individual is telling the true story or is complicating the matter. Secondly, as it comes to making some of these laws and legislation, a number of us did social studies in school and have an idea of how laws go through, and the green paper and the white paper and so on. But if you listen to the joint select committees, you will see that some of these processes flawed, because you can ask for views from the public, you can ask for recommendations, with the public sending emails, recommendations, and there's no way for us to know that it arrived, because you'll get a generic computerized response. We have received your email, thanks for participating, and that is the last they hear of it. When you see the actual bill come out, you're not saying, but I recommended this, or I saw this public group do a survey and this was their presentation. Where in the bill was this issue covered? Where in the lawmaking process was this aspect covered, or where does address this? So we could say yes, we could send any recommendations, but nobody cares. It's the same problem we see with consultations. The average man are going to raise critical issues that you would see in some of these social media comments. Vastly, you get certain themes coming through, and like they don't even care about that either. So we have the power, yes, but how can we? The only time it seems to be important is at election times, and after election, they don't seem to care because we don't have the right to recall.
But Positive, you're saying something that sounds the most hopeless out of everyone. You're saying that the officers must uphold the law as they see fit. Not just uphold the law as morally fit, uphold the law as they see fit, because they already have discretionary latitude. They could decide when to do certain things, and they do. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about police disobeying the law as some brand new something. I'm saying police already have discretionary latitude. I am saying that what I'm looking for in Trinidad. Yes, Sylvan.
But Nathan, to me that's a two-edged sword. What you're suggesting?
What's that?
All right, so police have the discretion. Police have the discretion. If I say, all right, you see this, I ain't find it making sense. I hear the blind. But the day I use my discretion, hey, you're overdoing it. And I enforce the law. I evil. In 1930, Germany as an Nazi. And these were saying it cannot be and to prevent that, here what happening? There's the law, we enforcing the law, there's a process, go by a representative, whoever change the law, and then it would not be enforced.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is police have a discretion, and you find this law in making sense. A businessman might find this law in making sense. A next person might find this law in making sense. And you are the police to use the discretion and enforce none of the law once it's convenient to you.
That's not what I said.
If you be held accountable for the law, the police wicked and the evil.
That's not what I said. I am talking about specific things. So just now, Positive. Just now, because he spoke something directly there. I want to say that I am not talking about all laws. I am saying there are certain things that could be clearly established. So what you're talking about there, Sylvan, makes it sound like you're a believer in moral relativism. That there's no standard of morality and nobody could know what is moral or immoral. And I don't believe that. I don't buy that. That's exactly the point I am trying to make. Okay, the police already do show discretion, don't they? Yes, they do. What I am saying is that they should be using that discretionary mode. They should be using that even more, because some of them act like they do not show that discretion. That's what I'm saying. Now, you're saying that if you don't show discretion for every single crime, I would say you're evil. That's not what that's at no point was that what I'm saying. I said that in regards to immoral laws, not in regards to giving somebody a blight for driving on the wrong.
In this case, Nathan, you alone decide what is moral.
No, I don't. So are you telling me, Sylvan, that you can't decide morality on your own?
Mr. Springer, give me one example of a law you believe is immoral.
Okay. Registering your vehicle on the road. Getting that sticker in Trinidad and Tobago. What does that mean? It means that you have enough resources to pay for your vehicle to remain at a certain level. There's no statistical evidence shown in Trinidad and Tobago road traffic data to show that vehicles that have not been inspected cause more road traffic accidents. So that's not based on statistics. The effect of a law like that. Wait, you ask me a question, Sylvan. All right.
Mr. Springer, you know how many persons sit or driving along the road and just so they get a tire blowout and result in the death of a family member? You know, people are driving and say, well, I apply my brakes and the car didn't stop. And it resulted in a child being killed.
How many of those vehicles were inspected already?
I don't have the data.
Almost all of them. Almost all of them. You know why? Because the inspection in Trinidad is a rubber stamp, and the police are aware of this. So that's what I'm saying. You know this. You know that the effect of this law is punishing poverty. Is punishing poverty a moral or immoral thing?
I do not know that all garages are smart men. I do not know that all the institutions that certify the cars are just doing it for the money. I do not know, and I believe, I'm not defending the mechanics, but I believe that's an unfair statement.
Are there some? Are there some that are dishonest and rubber stamp?
Well, the numbers will tend to suggest that in all occupations, everybody will not be on the up and up.
Right. That's one. That's one. Now, even beside the rubber stamp, this is still a limiting factor on poorer classes of people being able to access transport. Is that not the effect of it?
Do not see the correlation between having your vehicle roadworthy and poor people not being able to get transport. I do not see the immediate correlation.
You do not see the correlation between someone being unable to fix their vehicle to the inspection worthy level and having more resources at their access? That's direct correlation. I know some people right now, personally, I know some people who cannot get their vehicle inspected because they have a chipped windscreen and they're saving up the money right now to redo the windscreen. I know some people right now, they have a leak, they have an oil leak. The oil leak not bad, but it dirty in the engine a little bit and they will not get inspected with that. They have to save up to go by the mechanic to go and see about that whole oil leak. Is that not a punishment on lack of resources?
Sorry, now, are you saying having a roadworthy vehicle is a bad idea?
That's not what I'm saying. But I'm asking a question.
All right. So if it's not a bad idea, all right. We want to have a system in where we'll make sure that drivers' vehicles are roadworthy. All right, so you go by a certified mechanic, and we check. I ain't talking about paint and all them things. We check all the things that are important. If you're driving on the highway and your windscreen is damaged, it could collapse on you, right? And of course, that could cause an accident. Tires, brakes, all the essential things. I was not there, and I want to reserve what I say because I don't know it inside out. I really don't know. I really don't major in traffic offenses. Unfortunately, that is number 40. But to me, it's a good idea. Now, in the real world, it will have some negative consequences because not all laws are perfect. And I am saying, instead of asking the police not to enforce the law, can't we do what we do now? Pool our ideas, go to our representative and have that representative represent us in parliament. They sit as a team and come up with a law, if you believe it is flawed, that would best serve our community.
Yes, that positive. After I talk, you would talk. I know you're waiting for a long time, so I'll just say something quick and you'll get it in. Yes, I am not saying no to that. I am saying and. Because what I have realized by surveying history is actually you get more of the change done at the cultural level. So during the Jim Crow South era, when there were laws on the books that made discrimination legal, How you got that away is the black people went out there, had the police actually enact some of those laws, and then some of the police themselves began recognizing these laws made no sense. And as the society recognized these laws do not line up culturally with where we are at, and the society, including the police and law enforcement, revolted against the Jim Crow South laws, then the political leaders followed. You see, the idea that somehow we could sit here, discuss something, and go to the political leaders and they're going to listen to you like they give a damn about that is a fallacy. It does not work like that. Go ahead, Positive. Go ahead, Positive.
Right. I still would disagree with you there. Because one of the reasons I have not purchased a vehicle is for the same purpose of maintenance. They will tell you, you don't just buy a car to drive up the road and come back. You need to look at long-term maintenance.
True.
Oil needs to change. Brakes need to change. You need to have an in-case money in the event something happens. So half of the persons who driving these cars who you quote-unquote consider the poorer class, quote-unquote, and not in a position to financially do that. Why buy vehicles in the first place? Why put these vehicles on the road? We have seen recently a number of vehicles just catching fire and all of a sudden. Are those vehicles have inspection stickers?
Very likely all of them would have been inspected. They were new vehicles. The vehicles that caught a fire were new vehicles. Were pretty new vehicles.
So are we able to see the stickers before the fire melted? So
No.
it's a very good intention, but when you purchase a vehicle, you need to consider all of these factors. You don't just purchase a vehicle. Yes, it's a convenience, but you need to be, it's like making a child. You don't just go and make a child and say the government go and mind the child for me.
All right.
But you have social welfare for that.
But Positive,
To make these decisions, you need to consider all of these things before making it one.
a question for you in that. So, okay. Having an inspected vehicle to make sure the vehicle is safe is a good idea. So making it that no one could own a vehicle until it's inspected to that level is a good idea. Should housing be the same? So if I have no home and I go and knock up a wood shack, should the police be able to bring down my wood shack, force me to go and find a place to rent because my wood shack isn't safe enough?
That's a 50-50 in that scenario. And I'm going to tell you why. We see that happening with the issue with flooding. We see it when a hurricane passes and all of the buildings collapse. We see it when they go and build close to the rivers. Now it's the same government administration. You come back and they're asking for help to rescue. So even if we're doing some of these things, we also need to look at it from both sides of the coin. Because when we have increased flooding in some of these areas, and we do have to send in the Coast Guard in these boats into these high-risk areas to rescue people in these same dilapidated states of buildings. So even if we do need, you'll have different tiers of governance. So even in the event you have a vehicle, yes, it may not be 100% to the standard, but you could be reasonable. You could tell if a tire has been worn out over a period of time. You could tell the difference between a fresh windscreen crack and something that's been there over a while. So even if I'm extending my discussion, I would be reasonable. So if you come and I see your building and I realize this building is on the riverbank, you're not complying with that code and we're heading into the hurricane season. Am I supposed to say, okay, your shack looks wonderful, and when your house blow down, the government needs to come and rescue me, and look where my house is, and I ain't get no house. And then we know how to use state resources just to rescue you and your children, and we told you guys beforehand, this is not a safe option. How can we help? How can we walk you through the process of changing this scenario? Or we put in systems in place to avoid it. So the government must leave us to do what we want. When we put ourselves in a messy position, the government must still come and rescue us again.
You see, Positive, you're going down to the community. Go ahead.
My house can kill you on the road.
What's that?
From that, my house, apart from that, my house can kill you on the road. My house can bounce your house and damage it beyond repair.
But your house could damage any person that enters it too. So there is a possibility.
But the person entering the building is at their risk because you would automatically assess the building. You would take a look at it before you're going. It's the same thing with if you're driving a company vehicle, Nathan. Would you not look to right inspect or walk around before you take up a company vehicle? Because anything happening on that road is your responsibility. responsibility.
I see.
And it's the same thing with the vehicles.
Okay.
So if I choose to drive in a dilapidated vehicle, it's my responsibility, yes, but it will affect so many other persons that have no control over that.
Okay.
So from them, I used to persons running page taxi will tell you that people look at the condition of your cars before they step into it. You're not going to an old broken down vehicle that you suspect something going to happen to and pay your money because you know you're putting yourself at the risk.
Correct. You're right. Here's the reality in that. The road system has already engineered a solution for that. I am required by law to insure my vehicle as such that if my vehicle harms somebody, my insurance pays for it. I already hold liability for what happens to my vehicle on the road. The thing that marvels me in this a bit positive radiation is that some people think so oddly of human nature. They think like humans need laws in order for their own self-preservation. Nobody wants to go in a car on the road that puts them at risk. That's not needed. You don't need a law to make somebody not want to put themselves at risk in that way. So I don't believe that's needed like that. The law that's needed is to protect other people from other people. And we already had that in place with the insurance. That's what insurance is there for. If my vehicle harms someone else on the road, the insurance takes that.
So what you're saying is because my car is insured, that gives me the right to drive a defective vehicle to harm another individual because my insurance is going to pay for that. So
No.
once my car is insured,
It doesn't give you the right to harm somebody else.
let me insurance fix them.
It doesn't give you the right to harm somebody else, but it opens the opportunity for you to use the road in the chance that someone else is harmed. That's the purpose of the insurance.
But Nathan,
Yes, Sylvan.
across, what you good night. What you saying, Nathan? I saw it coming across, and you're saying, hey, you see that inspection thing? Forget that. All you drive what all you want, how all you want. If something happens, it have insurance. That's how it being interpreted by me.
Okay, well, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that we have to be conscious when we're talking about laws and enforcing laws in our country. So, what positive radiation is talking about there? What positive radiation is talking about there creates countries where, as we move on, what we actually do is we pull up the ladder and chop off people at the bottom of the country. So, in the 1900s, there would have been people who would have lived in wood shacks, and there would have been people with bison carts on the road. As time progressed, we decided that, okay, if you drive a bison cart on the road now, it's illegal. We lock you off. You cannot do that. So now we drag you to another level. And you in the mud shack, now we have laws against that. We have building codes. You in the mud shack, we must drag you up. And we're dragging you and dragging you and dragging you, not allowing freedom in the society. And then we're surprised when we see, oh no, look at the direction our society is headed. Why is our society headed in a direction? Well, society is headed in a direction because we are dragging along society in that direction. People don't have the freedom to actually do what they want to do because we have the belief that the government must decide how we act. The government must make those decisions for us. The government must say, okay, at this point, no one in Trinidad can live in a wood shack anymore. You must all have concrete buildings with steel fixed on all corners. And we don't understand. The same people that say things like this will turn around and criticize the World Economic Forum, where they have the vision that in the future you will own nothing and you will be happy. You don't understand that that is the logical end of what you are talking about. The logical end is that those in authority will make the decision for everything in our life. You can't own a car because humans owning cars are too dangerous. So here's what we'll do. We'd have one corporation own all the vehicles, and these vehicles are run by AI, so you know there's no danger on the road. No, you can't own your own house. You might paint your house with toxic paint, and you might run a drug business inside of your house. So no, we'd have one corporation own all of the buildings, and you just rent the building from them. That's what you're not saying something new when you say things like this. There's presently a foundation aiming to change the world into that way. If that's what you're interested in, maybe you might be interested in a guy, Klaus Schwab. You could do some research in him. He may be just the guy you're looking for. Is he?
Hyperbole, Mr. Springer, hyperbole.
And
but listen, we need, I think a lot of your perspective on this particular matter has been one-sided, in my perspective. I could be wrong. We're free to disagree and respectfully do. But I think the inspection process, there are some good things that we free or we don't want to look at. Because even some of these problems, it's not today you will get up and your tire would run down. It's not a today for today. These things are over a period of time. Some of these things, it will take a while before it become critical or your vehicle become on the road worthy. You will not just buy on a roadworthy vehicle just so. You will look for some things in purchasing. So you know how to, if you set a standard and begin to hold to your standard, yes, there are exceptions that would come. But if anybody could flip-flop with your standard, you will have no standard at the end of the day. Anybody could do what they want at any time. Everybody, you could just become a whole roller coaster now. So if you have a set standard and you're holding everybody to that one standard, eventually you're going to see some change. Look at with the seatbelt. You increased the seatbelt fees and was enforcing seatbelt. Everybody was driving a seatbelt.
Wait on the seatbelt. How is the seatbelt not the same as the building? The only person at danger by you not wearing the seatbelt is yourself, not so?
Correct, but if you are thrown out of the vehicle and you lost control of the vehicle, you know, put other people at risk, Nathan.
What? If you're thrown out of the vehicle, you already got in the accident.
Correct, but I am also saying as well, this is why we enforce some of these laws.
No, wait, you're talking about the seatbelt law. How is the seatbelt law protecting anybody else? The seatbelt law is to protect who?
So are you saying it's okay to drive without a seatbelt and harm yourself then? So once you're doing self-harm, it's okay?
Are you saying that the government should police you away from doing self-harm?
Once it will implicate others, because you are not the only user on the road.
Go ahead, Sylvan.
Nathan, are you saying in that reasoning that suicide should be legal?
That suicide should be legal. Suicide, in terms of legality, I don't even understand how suicide is illegal, because if somebody offs the...
Well, attempted suicide, right? Because if you commit suicide, then you're dead. However...
I don't think... You're right. I don't think that should be illegal. I don't think it should be illegal. I think someone has a mental issue if they attempted suicide. You shouldn't be charging them and putting them in jail and going through the prison system if they attempted suicide.
So what should you... Alright, so what should you do? Because if it's alright, you're trying to kill yourself, let's go to sentence. And the person you are saying should be freed. No, I'm not going to sentence. Should the state take them against the will for their protection, to carry them sentence, for them to get better, to come back to society, to live a full life? Or, hey, it's your life, it's your choice. If you kill yourself, it's only you you're harming. Are you saying that is what should happen?
Yes and no. It's according to one of two options. If the person goes to St. Anne's, they do a mental evaluation and the person actually has a mental illness, well then if they have a mental illness, as a society, we have decided that people that are mentally incapacitated are unable to make decisions on their own, so you make a decision on their behalf to commit them to St. Anne's. However, if they attempted suicide, you carry them to St. Anne's and you recognize they are not ill, then what are you going to do? How are you going to stop them? Jail them? What's the other option anyway? Other than freeing them, what's the other option? Put them in jail? Is that going to help anything? No positive radiation. That's a big difference. Driving drunk is not the same as self-harm.
The Nathan, it is
Be quiet. I'm listening.
Nathan, it is dangerous. It is dangerous to have a society where if you're not mentally ill, it is okay to kill yourself. That is dangerous as a society, as a culture, Nathan.
I agree. That's why as a culture, we culturally teach the people that you don't go out offing yourself. But what you don't do is give the government the authority to determine that they can seek your own self-interest. Haven't we learned that through the COVID pandemic yet? Like, I would have thought that lesson was learned at least over the last 3 years. Do we want the government to determine what we must do to take care of ourselves? Really? Are you sure? Because here's where that leads, Sylvan. In Canada right now, there is euthanasia. Euthanasia is government-sponsored suicide. So when the government changes their mind and decides that suicide isn't a bad thing, that now it's an okay thing, and the government says that if your life is below a certain quality, the recommendation from a psychologist is suicide. You're understanding where that goes? So now in Canada, if you're at a certain mental level, so there was a Down syndrome guy, he went to a hospital. The recommendation from the psychologists in the hospital was assisted suicide, assisted death. His brother right now is attempting to sue them because he was like, my brother didn't need to die. He just was mentally a little missing in some things. That's the level that creates. Because you're saying now, each individual isn't able to see about themselves. Families cannot see about families. Individuals cannot see about individuals. Churches cannot see about individuals. None of these social and cultural structures we have outside of the government could see about people. The only thing that could see about people is the government making a law and men with guns enforcing it. Don't you see the problem with that? I think the purpose for the government and the men with the law and the men with the guns are to prevent us from harming each other. If there's something where I am attempting to take away the freedom from positive radiation, I am attempting to take away his freedom, then the government gets involved. Because what I do shouldn't contravene what someone else does. And then the police should be involved. But if what I'm doing has no effect on someone else, I don't get it. Go ahead, Sylvan.
Lisa, you making it sound as though the government is this abstract thing. It is us versus the government. The government is us.
Oh, it is? You believe so?
Yes, I do.
Is there anything you want changed in Trinidad right now?
Several.
Make it happen. How could you make it happen? You're the government. Make it happen.
Working on it.
When? Name one and tell me when would it happen.
The process isn't instant. The
Okay.
The cause is 1.4 million of, well, I'm guessing 1.6, 1.7 billion of us, right? The process will not be instantaneous. It will be gradual. But I am saying all of us are part of the process. And you making it sound as us against them makes it sound kind of adversarial.
It is.
You understand? Hey, by the way, in case I mispronounce word, they don't have my permission to post them up on YouTube, right, please?
Oh gosh, oh gosh.
On TikTok, yeah? Alright.
I wouldn't. And the only reason I post Crimac was it had that nice little snippet in it. It had the nice little snippet in it. But
You're doing dirty, Lisa. You're doing dirty.
nah.
What I'm saying? Nah, you're doing dirty.
I don't find
what
so.
I'm saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
what I'm saying is we are all part of the government. And when we start to understand our power, things will change for the better. Because in other cultures, them apple will spoil now because the people understand their power. And that is my point in this whole thing, and that is why you keep saying I'm going back, and is that the people need to understand their power, and I think you should use your platform to educate us, educate the people.
I am, and that's what I try to do all the time. But I'm trying to get realism inside here, to be realistic. You're saying you want something and the process takes time. Okay, I am asking you, tell me one of those things that you want to change and give me what do you think is the expected time that it would take to change. And the reason I'm doing that is to show that really and truly, I think you are pretty much aware that we don't get things done like that. We don't actually get change done like that. Do you know what is the number one cause of death among populations of people in the world? Something called democide. Do you know what democide is?
You could explain it as well as education.
Democide, I didn't expect you all to know it. It wasn't a gotcha or a show off thing. But democide, Instagram cutoff, hard luck for Instagram there. Democide is being killed by your government. Death by government is democide, not by foreign invading party, by government. Your own government killing you is, no, not number one, my bad. Number two, you know what's number one? Disease. Number two behind disease is democide. So obviously it's us against them. If we look through the history of humanity, governments have killed more people than any other thing other than disease. So obviously I should be concerned about what the government does in an adversarial manner, and even so the police, because very often when democide is carried out, it's carried out by the executory arm of the government. And that's why I keep saying things like the police, the executory arm, needs to have their moral conscience on at all times. You are in a very dangerous position there. Let me hear you positive.
Listen, can the police kill police?
Yes.
You don't need to answer, and this is what I'm saying. So you might say, yeah, you use your moral standing, but you had to protect your own life too at the end of the day. You had a case for your own life and for your own family members. This is what happened when you build a corrupt system for so long. It had to clean up a system that was practically built on corruption. And this is why even if we see elements and even discretion and all, is a very complicated topic.
I agree. I agree. No.
Because your discussion and my discussion is two totally different things.
Let me just put this caveat in there. Nowhere am I saying that policing is easy work. I think policing done right is one of the hardest jobs. That's why I am not a police. I don't think I have what it takes to be a right police in a country like ours. So I'm speaking plainly. I don't think it's an easy job. I think it's nearly impossible.
When we come back to the point, this is why the police service always have a problem in recruiting. This is why the police service often complains of having an issue with officers that could work and function and do it effectively. Because if the right thinking individuals who want to do it, what's going to happen? And the not right thinking individuals going to take their availability? And the rogue element is going to get involved. Because those who are the capacity to do that of the right thinking structure are afraid to be involved in it. So it's a circle and it seems to be unending.
You're right.
This is why I still would go back to the point as it pertains to the inspection of the vehicle. There is a reason for it. And there is a reason why some officers may know why they choose not to offer discretion. Some officers may realize that you're not being sympathetic. Some officers may use emotional intelligence. And while some might say, see, you as a big mouth at Germany, some might say, for whatever personal reasons I have. So once you leave the room for discretion, it will always fluctuate. You cannot determine discretion. When you think you might need a discretion, I might say, you know what? I don't think this deserves a discretion. I might see the risk. I could allow you now with a discretion for a tire. And when I drive down the road, I get a call to respond to an accident. It's because your tire just blew out down the road, harming other individuals because I choose to give you a discretion. How would I now feel outside of the legal ramifications of it? How would I now feel as an individual or as somebody with morals and standards and values feel, knowing that I could have charged you for that, or I could have taken your vehicle off of the road and saved your life as well as other individuals' lives? What am I going to think? Am I supposed
Positive,
to think like
positive. You sold it out there when you changed your word. Because even if you charged that person, they would have gone on driving on that same tire. You would have given them a ticket, take their money, but not change their tire. How does taking their money help them change the tire?
Well, I could concede, yeah. So we should not have given tickets, but we should take these vehicles off the road. Impound those vehicles.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you are telling me that this is about road safety, the plot of this story would take another route if this was about road safety. The same road that I drove on right before they gave me right after they gave me the ticket for registration was a road someone driving an inspected 4x4 van hit one of the massive holes in that road and flipped, and a lady died in the van on that road. So if it was about roads and serious about the roads, then we would have been, the police would have, if the police was so, well, not the police, they're following the laws. If the people in charge were so interested about road safety, they would have forgotten about inspecting vehicles and turned all the attention around to actually making the road better. But if we live in a system, my last statement, my last paragraph here, last paragraph, then you would go. If we live in a system where they're telling us we're doing this for road safety, but the part that's their responsibility to keep the road safe, they aren't keeping, and they're punishing us for the part that is our responsibility. Isn't that an unfair system? Aren't we in a system with cruel leaders?
Life isn't unfair. However, I would go as far as to say, even in that case, if we had to impound these vehicles, how many vehicles would be impounded? How often would we have to have systems in place for that? Because I have no problem with law enforcement saying you can't continue to drive this vehicle. And if my memory serves me correct, one of the officers could correct me, police officers have the right to take vehicles off the road. I can't remember the details of it, so you're going to clear it up for me.
Well, Sylvan said his expertise isn't traffic violations. But
and yes, and how would have you felt if your vehicle was taken off of the road for whichever defect the officer identified? I told you, Mr. Springer, you need to park this vehicle at the side of the road for whatever reason. How would have you felt you responded?
Sir, if you tell me my vehicle is not roadworthy, so I need to park it at the side of the road, you don't give me a ticket, you don't tell me about demerit points, you tell me this is for your safety, you have to park this. You know what I was going to do? Jump out, call my brother, that one was my brother's vehicle, tell him, hey, they say that vehicle is defective, you have to come pick me up, or go get my vehicle and come pick me up. And I'd have been fine. I'd have been happy. Okay, it's understandable. What they did this for was because the vehicle was defective. The thing is, the vehicle that I was driving actually had no mechanical problems. Nothing was defective. It had new tires even. The inspection ran out in 2022. It's not the primary vehicle driven, so it wasn't inspected yet for 2023. So there was no mechanical problem with the vehicle.
Right, but how was that officer to determine that during the process? So was the officer supposed to do an inspection of the vehicle?
I didn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm responding to what you said. I'm responding to what you said.
I'm asking these questions thinking from a different angle, because the typical member of the public is going to take your position, and I agree. And I am not a law enforcement officer. But I'm just taking it from the angle of an officer as well. If the inspection sticker is a way of me knowing, okay, this vehicle is up to a particular standard, or is supposed to, presumably, because you can get a sticker and it may not be up to the standard. Because we can get a sticker today and I boost my tire on my way home. That's the reality. But how am I supposed to know that your vehicle is up to that standard? Because I can't inspect every vehicle on the road. I can't carry a van or every vehicle to go to licensing for an inspection.
Yes, Sylvan.
Apparently all police are to be trained mechanics. I know.
That's not... I didn't go down that route. The only reason I said nothing was wrong with the vehicle was because Positive asked how I would have felt if they told me to park up the vehicle. And if they told me to park up the vehicle, that would make more sense. You could tell me that you're doing that about my safety. But the point I've made with... Yes, Sylvan. I didn't hear you. You're breaking up a bit there, bro. You're breaking up a bit. I suppose you're talking, but I'm not hearing you. And this is kind of a lot of the where we talk about discussing things. That's exactly what I'm doing here, Sylvan. Hopefully, in this discussion, people get to understand things. People get to understand that when you hear the government talk about fines for this and a traffic violation fine for this, you understand that the government isn't doing that because they care about road safety. This is the same government that would allow the roads to deteriorate. It's not really about road safety. It's about money collection. That's what it is about at the end of the day. Yes, Silva. I know you're talking about. Yeah. I hear you now.
I apologize. Apparently, my connection was poor.
Yeah.
But you keep describing the government as wicked and evil. But what does that say for the people?
That there are very many wicked and evil people.
Say it to them.
Sylvan.
But then wicked and evil people have to be the majority.
I don't know, but I know there are many wicked and evil. I don't doubt that. People who look around at humanity and think that all humans are nice, beautiful, cuddly creatures are people who don't understand humans. The nature of humankind is not nice and loving and want to do good by you. Humans are naturally selfish. If you're looking at humans from an evolutionary perspective, biological, you think that we came evolving through these stages. Well, in evolution, it's every creature for himself. It's survival of the fittest. So obviously we have to be selfish. If you're thinking about this from a religious perspective, from a biblical perspective, then the Bible tells you that man born of a woman, the heart of a man is desperately wicked. Who can know it? So either way you want to look at this, you know that people are not good people out there. That's why if I am talking about my view on things politically is not that I want a group of people to have power over me as much as possible, because I have looked through history, and when people have gotten power over other people, you see very often what they do, because people are not naturally good. So as much as possible, I am a proponent of the free market. The free market meaning people see about themselves, and what we have civilized society for, what we make institutions for, is to deal with intrapersonal problems. Understanding people are selfish, we need a police force. That's why I am not like people who say defund the police in the United States and that kind of rubbish, and abolish the police and that kind of rubbish, because I understand we need police because there are evil people out there. I don't think if you go and be a father figure to all the gangsters in Trinidad, they're going to stop being gangsters. Some of those guys are evil. And we need the police to be there to separate the evil people from harming the regular ones. I am not going to shy away from that fact. There would be evil police too. Of course, positive radiation. I have established that. I don't doubt that. Of course they are evil. I am sure police are most aware of how evil other police are. And Sylvan, this is something that kind of upsets me sometimes. I am not a hater of police, even though it sounds like that sometimes. I actually have close people to me who are police that you mightn't believe. But it kind of offends me sometimes when clearly obvious things are said about officers, and it's always the defensive. The police, it feels, where you hear people talk about police being the biggest gang in Trinidad, is because you get that feeling. If you go and you critique an accountant lied on your tax sheet, and you go and say this accountant is a bad accountant and look how they're thieving from me, you're not going to find all the accountants coming around and trying to find the reason where you were wrong and you probably misunderstood, and you know accountants have it hard.
Agency that I am aware that police themselves that catch wrongdoing and prosecute them and bring them before the court is the police service. And if I use that as a measuring stick, it seems to be that the police service is one of the better run institutions in the island, because I am aware of other situation where there are allegations of corruption, and I've never seen anybody brought to justice. But
I don't deny that at all.
opening people, huh?
I don't deny that. I don't deny what you're saying there at all.
But every week, I open the papers and I see the police service self-regulating, and that gives me faith in the police officers.
I understand what you're saying. And I don't know enough of our law enforcement to say the best. But if we compare them to licensing or customs, I might put police ahead of licensing and customs. But the reason you don't generally see me go on a tirade about customs or licensing that often is because the first answer I gave to you, because very often the police is the finger side that touches you. Police is the side that reaches to everyone. That's the side you interact with on a nearly daily basis. So when they have mistakes, it's seen much more. Now, if you're talking comparatively, you're not going to get a fight from me there. I always talk about that. And that's why when I see licensing officers on the road giving people tickets for anything, I could spit. Because everybody in Trinidad knows that is an open, corrupt institution.
But Nathan, the inspection and the sticker process is not licensing basically responsible for that. Only police does it enforce. So we are doing the enforcers for something that they have absolutely no control over.
But that's what I'm saying. The police supposed to know them people is crook.
Apart from that, Nathan, as one I say your supporters, I am asking you, please don't make statements that you don't have facts to support, please.
Like what?
Talk generally or something like that.
Like what? Sylvan, I don't know if you notice, but I don't say factual statements like that, you know. I say may, probably, possibly, might be, could be, I think, my opinion. What might be? It is reported, it is alleged, it is said. Some might say, it might seem. Listen, I have words, I have qualifying words that can go on forever. I am not one of those looking to be paying people like Dr. Rowley my little small money for stupid defamation. I don't go out claiming factual things. So, for example, the 75% thing I said about police, I said, I am sure probably 75% isn't a statement of fact. If I state a fact, I state a fact. And I state a fact based on a quotation. I don't even like to state facts out of my head. I'll state a fact based on the Express article or a fact based on the Guardian article. But thank you for that piece of advice. I agree with that. I try to give that advice to every online personality. When I see some people talk about politics and they give them out certain kind of liberty to call people's names and to call things as facts, I am taken aback. But I try my, I don't think I do that. If you see me claim a statement of fact that isn't factual, please call me out on it. Tell me exactly when I do it. Because I try my best not to, and I don't think I do. But thank you for that. That's very correct. That's very correct. Licensing division could be downsized by 95%, replace them with AI, remove them from the street entirely. Here's an idea I was having, Sylvan, and tell me what you think about this. Because earlier on in the live, someone said this, and I believe this, that the trivial traffic offenses is a chief reason there is that lack of trust between the population in Trinidad and the police. And I believe that has a large part to do with it. The trivial traffic offenses. Do you think it would benefit the police service in Trinidad and Tobago if they are removed nearly completely from policing traffic violations? Like, you even so if I have to get vexed with someone for giving me a ticket for failed registration, let it be a traffic warden. Don't put the police in that position. Do you think that's a viable solution, Sylvan?
So you're suggesting to replace traffic wardens. So you will still have the enforcement. You'll still be curbing bad behavior on the road, potentially dangerous behavior on the road. But instead of utilizing the police, you utilize the traffic warden, freeing up the police to do other jobs. On the face of it, that could work. And
I like your answer. On the your answer ain't political, but on the face of it, that could work.
No, well, I was. Anyway, don't make that.
Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get yourself in trouble.
In a country, far away, there was once a group of persons that had a good idea that the persons committed crime, they would give them money to stop, because they went to them to say, hey, why are they committing crime? They said, boy, pressure, we have nothing to eat, we need food. They say, all right, we'll give all the contracts and we'll give all your money.
A country far away.
The face of it, that was a country very far away.
All right.
And at the face of it, that sounded like a good idea. But what it meant that in order to get these lucrative contracts, what it meant that you need to be the biggest crime element in a geographical area. And that in any business, it has competition. And then if you get one contract, you want to get two. So then what they took the newfound wealth and did was buy more guns to control the territory. So on the face of it, ideas look good, but we need to sit down and discuss it as a people.
True.
To get the correct result. So on the face of it, replacing traffic enforcement with traffic wardens instead of the police sounds good.
I like that.
All right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, what would you do now when a traffic warden do a front stop signal and it's 4 riflemen in the car?
And that's what I think about. That's what I thought about with that thought. That's why the thought of that is, if they tell them to stop and they drive off, the traffic warden calls the police. Because, like, when I'm thinking that, it's not like the police don't have authority, but the stops where you're driving along the road 8 o'clock in the morning and you see 10 police officers 8 o'clock in the morning stopping people to look at their license and registration and all of that. In a country where there are 600 plus murders, I find all the men with guns shouldn't really be there giving tickets and looking at soccer moms, people who dropping their children off to school, inspecting their license and registration. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible a violent criminal might be in the school traffic mix. That might be possible, but I feel like that's not the, if we're looking for best bang for buck, we have a limited amount of police, we have to pay them, and they could only be in a limited amount of places at a time. And I feel like leaving 10 police on a street corner to look at license and registration just doesn't feel like the best use of police resources to me. And I understand that with a traffic warden there, it wouldn't stop me being angry about being ticketed, but I feel like let's decrease the trust between traffic wardens and the citizens. That's fair, that's fine, but increase the trust between the police and the citizens. Let the police and the citizens at least have that trust. Yeah, positive.
Nathan, I have a question for you. Because for the while in my mind not playing on something, I think I got true. So you were saying that the guy who has the busted windscreen is saving up to pay or to change the windscreen.
Yeah.
How do you think he would feel with me now telling him, I'm going to impound your vehicle or leave your vehicle here because you're saving up to fix that windscreen on that vehicle, and until the windscreen is fixed, the state owns that vehicle. Do you think it will cost him more or less, or is it an equal trade-off in that case? So the father said, can't replace the windscreen, we need to hold on to the vehicle. When they could replace the windscreen, you'll get back the vehicle. Is that a fair trade-off?
To me, the reason I talk about this is the area I live in. I'm answering. I know I could be long-winded sometime, but I'm answering. The area I live in, there's a community there where I regularly see those vehicles. And I see the men who own the vehicles and I see what they do. And they do work a lot of the time with it. If you ask one of them Would you rather get a $1,500 ticket and 60 merit points, or how much ever the merit points, or would you rather that vehicle be impounded and until you could fix this checklist of things, then you get it back? I can assure you he would rather the vehicle be impounded. He would rather not have the vehicle to his access right now than actually be out of money. You see that $1,000 ticket? Some people
didn't simply park up the vehicle. So why you didn't simply park up the vehicle until? Why not simply?
I knew that's what the next question was going to be.
Question would come.
I knew that.
What you could now say is, officer, it just happened. And once you could prove that the officer might tell you, go straight to me the vehicle, he might make a record of it in his in the electronic system and say, boy, where you live? I live Shagona, so I leave this party or I live wherever. He might say, hey, boss, go straight home with the vehicle. So anyway, you get stopped along that line. Remember, we was discussing it before. They could record or they could make a note of it that a warning was issued. So anybody encountering a vehicle on the route to wherever it is could say, okay, yes, this vehicle was impounded. So we know if I spot a vehicle, let me say 3 or 4 hours later at 4 o'clock, or let me say at 12 a.m. in the morning, and that warning was issued at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I now should have legal rights to impound that vehicle and to issue a ticket or charge that individual because he was given a fair opportunity to act reasonably.
I could agree with that. I could agree with that. A couple of things. Firstly, I don't like the idea of the government issuing fines because a fine is only a crime to the poor. In terms of the judicial system, fines don't really make sense. To me, fines don't tell me you are actually serious about what you're saying. If I am behaving dangerously, my car is impounded, so I don't drive that. If I am a repeat offender, then obviously I am a dangerous person. I am impounded afterwards, if you understand what I mean. You impound me, you charge me. But the fine, a fine is a crime to the poor. Why would they not park up the vehicle in the first place? Here's the thing. We spoke about this in a previous live. Have you ever done residential construction? In residential construction, you see people mixing concrete barefoot. You see people mixing concrete in slippers. You see people mixing concrete in short pants. People in vests. You see people climbing scaffolding made of 2 barrels with a plank in between the two barrels. According to health and safety regulations, all of that is wrong. But why do they do it? Because that's the method they have to make a living. If they had to go and follow the rule of the law to do this building, they would not get the job. That's why they do it. So yeah, some people take a chance on the road, but that's the living some people have. So like when I hear things like this, I wonder if some people would be of the opinion that we should enact our OSHA police and they should be going around to building sites to make sure all of the building sites are up to the health and standard levels. Everyone has their steel tip boots, their overalls with the reflectors on it, their hard hats with their gloves and their goggles. Do we do that?
When incidents and accidents happen, who do we run to? Who do we go to and say these individuals, when they do get injured on the job, they're not going to say, well, it's really my fault, you know, I'm going to take the hit. When you go to NIS,
in residential construction? Who is blame anybody in residential construction positive? You know how many men I know with strained back, broken bones, a crowbar fall on the head from a height up. I know a guy fell off a roof. There are a few well died and got not a cent. Many in Trinidad. Many in Trinidad.
I am requesting a live on construction.
Whoa, I would love that. And these are the things I wonder. If you have the view that the law is the law should be upheld. What about things like that? Do we shut down residential construction in Trinidad and Tobago? And I could tell you, for all of the listeners in the live, if you are building a home, a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath flat house, and the labor and material cost was probably, let's say, 500,000, 600,000 according. If they had to follow every dot of the OSHA guidelines, you may be paying $1 million. Easily double the price. Would you be okay with that? Or is it only okay when the people suffering are the poorest people? No. Let's not enact those OSHA laws because I wouldn't be able to build my house. But let's enact the ones that I can do. I am not that poor. I could do that one. So forget about them poor people. Man, the men who fix up my house, they ain't wear boots and hard hat yet, Trini Hotep says. Yeah. I don't think I ever saw residential construction in Trinidad with a hard hat. Those guys not wearing no hard hat. The shield for the grinder is off. No goggles are on. No masks are being used. It's the reality. If we enact all of the safety measures in mines around the world, we wouldn't be able to pay for the lithium inside of our phone batteries. The lithium inside of our phone batteries is that cheap because they don't think about safety standards where they take them out. But we don't care about that in that case. All of a sudden our concern about safety evaporates. I think it's convenient, and that's my problem with it. I don't think anybody really cares about other people's safety that much. It's convenient. It's convenient, and that's why I find it so despicable. I don't hate police. I do think they do a very important job, a nearly impossible job. I think because of the importance of that job, where it's in that linchpin kind of category. You're the one there in between the government that has the record for killing the most people beside diseases since humanity has been humanitying. They have that record. You're the one in between the government and the people. So you have a very important duty beside just following the law and listening to orders. That's basically my point.
I think that stats is incorrect. I think wars is the number one cause of death in humanity in all time.
No, diseases are the number one.
All right, and even on those wars, it wasn't government per se, because those time was with Genghis Khan and tribes and that kind of thing. So it wasn't really governmental.
I just pulled it up to make sure. What is democide? Democide is the murder of any person or people by their government, including genocide, politicide, and mass murder. And you see, the problem is sometimes when we think about the atrocities of people, we think about Genghis Khan and raiders. Raiders killed a lot, but they weren't the ones who killed the most. The ones who killed the most were people like the Soviet Union, who systematically, during the Holodomor, starved nearly 100 million of their own people to death. Democide is like the British government that during the World War I, was it, systematically stole the food from India, who they governed, to starve out the Indians.
Churchill.
Yes, that was Churchill. That was Churchill and the British. That's democide. Democide was Muammar Gaddafi. What he did in Libya, killing people from a side. Democide was Pol Pot. As Kervon said, Pol Pot was in which one of those Oriental countries where he attempted to go back to year one. That was his attempt. The Khmer Rouge, he attempted to go back to year one, reset the world. Democide is the Chinese Revolution, the Communist Revolution with Mao Zedong. When he, through the Red Revolution, they killed, what, 120 million plus? That's democide. That has nothing on the raids of Genghis Khan and the wars of Julius Caesar. Those guys are pipsqueaks. Democide is the worst, because you see, democide is you have a captured group. That's the problem. It's not like a battle where they could fight. You have them right there. That's the scary part.
And you see, tonight I agree I was wrong, right? So I apologize, I was wrong.
I like that. I like that, Sylvan, because now I have to say I was wrong, because I said in a previous live I have never seen an officer admit they were wrong. So now I am wrong. You have proven me wrong.
And I've never admitted I was an officer either,
sir. Sir, you all don't have to admit it, you know. You could hear it in the voice, the ring of the voice. Then when you address people and you say sir, and the word selection, there's a word selection that officers use. When an officer writes a paragraph, you could tell it's an officer, because they are custom writing police reports. They are custom writing police reports. I sound like a police. Yes, you have the voice, but you don't have the intonations yet positive. You have the voice, but you don't have the command in your voice yet. Like you are custom talking with authority to everybody you talk to. That's the kind of command you have in your voice. Like, anybody that hears this voice must obey. Hey, I'm having fun. I hope you guys are too. It is 12 and after 12. This was real good. I'm glad we did this, and I'm glad we could have discussions where we disagree and are amicable about it, because as I always say, I think that's how we learn. But I have to go. This was nice. Big up the police same way. Yes. They do help us more than if they weren't here. Many people think we would be fine if the police weren't here, but we won't. There are some evil people out there. Never doubt that there are some very evil people out there. Anyway, this has been the Mindful Life, people. The discussion was nice. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer, your host, and I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Life, which is going to be tomorrow evening around that 9:30 time. Yeah, Sylvan?
This live was enjoyable. It started out as a bashing against the police, and I'm glad that it could end up pro-police, which means that the police is doing something good.
Yeah. As I said, I am pro-police. I want the police to work. I want them to work the best they can. All right, yeah. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live session tomorrow around that 9:30 p.m. time. We went long, and it was good. See you guys then. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Peace. Hold it down.